Getting even better. Orion News Talk. News and views beyond the mainstream media.
And it is that while the lethality of their power is greater than ever, their capacity to impose control over the politically awakened masses of the world is at a historical low. Namely, in earlier times, it was easier to control 1 million people. Literally, it was easier to control 1 million people than physically to kill 1 million people. Today, it is infinitely easier to kill 1 million people than to control 1 million people.
The smoke in the air of our Concord bridges and Pearl Harbors is always smelled first by the farmers who come from their simple homes to find the fire and fight.
But if you embark on instituting a society where government protects you from yourself, you're in big trouble, and that's what they're doing. That's all government is force. I mean, do you have a choice about paying Medicare taxes? This government uses force to mold behavior or mold the economy. They've overstepped the bounds, and they violated the whole concept of our revolution and our Constitution.
It's Thursday evening, folks, and it's time for another edition of the Freedom Link here on the Orion Talk Radio Network. I'm Joe Joseph. Tonight, sitting in the co-pilot's chair is Popeye from FederalJack.com, and down the rabbit hole, Tim has been afflicted with a unknown virus from the deep, dark recesses of the Amazon rainforest and is unfortunately not able to be with us tonight. So everybody wish him well, say prayers, do whatever you got to do, but let's get Timmy back as soon as possible. Our guest
I love sitting with you, Joe, but, you know, I do miss Tim, so everybody send love and good thoughts his way. Yes, please.
Our guest tonight is Michael Murphy, the producer of What in the World Are They Spraying? And it's so good to have you here, Michael, because, you know, my audience, they all the time, chemtrails, ask for proof about chemtrails. You know, there's, as a matter of fact, today, from one of my listeners, I got we had a good conversation about chemtrailing and how do I convince my friends that are always skeptical and everything else. So I gave them 10,000 links, and of course yours was one of them. And so I'm so glad to have you on the broadcast tonight, because there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, and I think you can kind of help shed some light on the subject.
Well, I certainly should be able to. We've been researching this for several years now, learning more and more every day. You know, after investigation, this is what I believe to be the most dire issue that we as humans will and have had to face. Scientifically, it's actually called geoengineering, specifically chemtrails or stratospheric aerosol geoengineering. But now it looks like they're changing names on us to solar radiation management and climate remediation. Many people are waking up to the term geoengineering, and it's getting a bad rap because it's not good for anything on the planet. So it looks like it's an attempt to confuse the general public about the term geoengineering. But I use both. I use chemtrails and geoengineering. Geoengineering for the more scientific. But, hey, great to be on, and really appreciate you bringing light to this issue.
Well, we certainly do try. One of the things that we found, and my wife and I found in our journey, was on the government side, of course, you know, chemtrails and geoengineering, they have so many different applications. There's so many different ways they're used and everything else. But one thing that I found very interesting is the Department of Energy is really one of the major players in chemtrailing on the government side. As a matter of fact, the Department of Energy runs the Climate Research Facility, or ARM as it's called, and the ARM Climate Research Facility, if you go on their website, you can go on and actually look at aerosol dissipation rates, types of aerosols, aerosol backscatter radiation, all these tests, all these universities that are associated with it. So I guess my question to you first off is, how does the government get away with denying the existence of these programs when they're published right on the internet, on their own websites? How do they do it?
Well, there's definitely the studies are in the open, the aerosol research studies and the geoengineering research. So what they're doing, geoengineers such as David Keith, Ken Caldera, Alan Robach, with support and funding from our good friend Bill Gates, they're coming out and stating that these are just models. Geoengineering models are models to spray 10 to 20 million tons of toxic aluminum oxide and other toxins into our sky. And what they're saying is that this is to mitigate global warming. They say putting these aerosols up will actually reflect the sunlight back into space. Even though we have rain tests from around the world, since we released What in the World Are They Spraying, people from around the world started testing the rain. Rain's a very good indicator of atmospheric contamination. And again, and hundreds of tests, they're finding what many are now calling the chemtrail geoengineering fingerprint or footprint of aluminum, barium, and strontium. These metals were not in our rain about 10 to 15 years ago. They've increased in some cases over 50,000 percentage points. The metals match geoengineers' plans exactly. They match about 166 different patents that have actually been designed to specifically spray these toxins into our sky. And, of course, what we see in the sky, these long trails that actually spread out and block the sun, is what geoengineers are specifically proposing. But they are denying that they have started these programs, stating that they're only models. But this contamination is everywhere, and it's very toxic to both human health and our ecology. We have ecosystems literally around the world collapsing. So hopefully we can talk a little more about that. But again, their official statement is these are just models. We haven't started these programs. They are, however, calling for emergency planetary, emergency wartime scale geoengineering, and they're calling for geoengineering legislation to make these illegal programs legal. And I think the reason why is people around the world are now starting to notice that our skies are changing. NOAA actually came out with a report, and they noted a 20% decline in the amount of sun reaching the Earth. That's exactly what geoengineers state that they want to do, of course, deny that they're doing this. NOAA also reported a significant increase in specifically stratospheric aerosols. In those studies, they failed to indicate both the source of those aerosols and failed to indicate the composition. We know what the composition is. It's aluminum, barium, and strontium. Again, that matches geoengineers' plans exactly, and it matches the number of patents. So there's no question these are in full-scale deployment, but these programs are not legal for many different reasons, and hopefully we can talk about weather control in the next film. So what they're doing, again, they're using this supposed threat and this fear of global warming, and they're very open. They state geoengineering will damage many things. They said it will create droughts in certain areas, likely disrupt the food supply of over 2 billion people. They're very open about the destruction of our ozone, stating our programs will shred the ozone. NOAA just reported a significant hole in both north and southern hemisphere, exactly what geoengineers state they're going to do. But they said we have to do this to save the entire planet from the supposed threat of global warming. So it's deeply concerning, but we're finding that these aerosols in the sky, a number of studies since we released the first film actually indicate that while it will, when you put the aerosols up and people notice during very heavy spray days, the temperature will drop about 10 to 15 degrees. So it will cool the Earth temporarily, but when the sun goes down, those aerosols actually trap heat. So these programs will warm the planet and are, because we've seen an increase in nighttime highs. So the question now is, okay, it's a bogus, it's totally bogus. So what is the true agenda of this? And that's what we're investigating in the next film, Why in the World Are They Spraying, which is very exciting. We just started editing. I'm going to take a take a deep breath. I spoke a lot there, guys.
No, that was awesome, man. I mean,
I can correlate the fact that nighttime highs are getting it's getting warmer. I've noticed when they spray down here at night, it'll be significantly more humid and hot out.
Exactly.
Than it is on days that they don't spray. So you can tell.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Same thing in North Carolina. We've noticed the same thing, too, where the difference, the disparity between the high during the day and the low at night, there's not as much disparity as there used to be. And but what's interesting, too, though, and we're running up against a break, so I just want to put this out, folks. What's interesting, too, is that many other planets out there are also having their own global warming crisis. So I wonder if it's cow farts and car exhaust that actually causes it on Mars and Jupiter and everywhere else. Just something to think about. We'll be right back. We'll have a lot more with Michael Murphy. My inbox has been flooded with compliments about the past shows and the guests. And I'd just like to thank you for all your kind emails, and continue to send emails, whether they're good or bad. Any suggestions to the Freedom Link at CenturyLink.net. That's the Freedom Link at CenturyLink.net. Popeye, my co-pilot, is here along with Michael Murphy of the documentary What in the World Are They Spraying? And you guys got right to work, Michael, on a new film that's going to be coming out here soon, right?
We did. We're actually in the editing booth. We just completed our last interview with Rosalind Peterson of California Skywatch.
Awesome.
And so we've also interviewed Nick Begich about HAARP and how the trails relate to HAARP, meteorologist Scott Stevens, military contractor Mark McCandlish spoke a whole bunch about this, Barb Peterson of Farm Wars, and really what we've learned. The first film was great. It was my first film, and it did pretty well for a first film. It was viewed by over 10 million people at this time. As a result, It's been a catalyst in getting people active and using the film. It's actually an activism tool, and that was my hope. So people around the world now are duplicating DVDs. They're handing them out. I hand them out every day. We actually encourage people who purchase a copy to make copies and hand out for free. And that's a great way to wake up your community. You can go to truthmediaproductions.us to obtain a copy. We've lifted that copyright. And again, it's been a very effective tool. We also have ordinances that are now being established around the world to ban these programs. I just returned from a trip from Maui where we're working on the Clean Sky Ordinance to effectively ban these programs without informed consent in an environmental impact statement, which geoengineers will never get because these programs are just so devastating on both human health and ecology. But the question after the first film was, why are they doing this? And the goals for the first film, what in the world are they spraying, were to prove, A, that we are being sprayed, and then B, that these programs are a threat to human health and ecology. And we drove that point home, and I think most people got that. But they're saying, why is this going on? So we started looking into a lot of different agendas, and there's a whole lot out on the Internet. A lot of it's credible. Some of it is disinfo, but there's many different agendas to these programs. By putting these aerosols in the sky, they can do a whole lot. But I started looking around and speaking to meteorologists who are aware of this issue, and came to realize that weather control, these trails, these aerosols, are absolutely required to achieve the weather modification or weather control objectives that these corporations have. So what they do, if you remember the testing in the first film, what we're finding is massive amounts of aluminum and other heavy metals, and again, there are a number of patents designed to spray those. We said, why are they spraying heavy metals? First, we know that these programs actually warm the planet. So to think that it's mitigating global warming is foolish. What we have found, aluminum is a very effective conductor in the sky.
Yes, it is.
We notice a day or two before a storm, very heavy aerosol, very heavy chemtrailing. What we found, again, that aluminum's a conductor. So through the use of HARP and other technologies. HARP is an ionospheric heater. They can actually heat up that metal particulate. And when they heat it up, it rises. And in that rising, it creates a low-pressure vacuum, and it enables these corporations to literally steer storms. I went to an aerosol research conference when I was in your neck of the woods down in the Boca Raton area. In October, I spoke with a number of atmospheric professors. They all told me that geoengineering could be used to corporatize our weather because aerosols also affect the way that clouds condense and nucleate. So by spraying a certain aerosol, you can actually dissipate a storm or you can build a storm. So through the use of these technologies, these corporations have the ability to steer storms into certain areas and create droughts in certain areas. So then I said, well, that doesn't make sense. Why would somebody want to control the weather? And I found that certain corporations on a number of different levels absolutely benefit from this. And at the very low level, there's a monetary objective. There are many objectives just in weather control alone. And we found out that weather is actually being traded on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. That started, I think, around 1997. They have weather derivatives. A company will essentially hedge the risk. They'll bet on the weather. And the companies that have an interest in this are either insurance companies or energy companies. And let's say if a certain power company requires in the wintertime in the Midwest a certain number of days to be below 30 degrees. And like this last year, it's a particularly warm winter. What they will do is actually hedge the risk. And if it's a warm winter, they will not lose. Insurance companies, let's say if they have a crop, again, in the Midwest, that is worth $5 million. And they know that a drought's coming, they insure for $10 million, they absolutely make money. And again, this is not proof that these programs are going on. We'll talk about the proof. But it does show that there's a monetary objective, and those that have the playbook, those that are in cahoots with these multinational corporations that are involved in the weather control programs, they absolutely can make money. So there's also a military objective, and we found some history back in, no pun intended, Popeye, but there's a program in Vietnam called Project Popeye, where the U.S. military actually flooded out the Ho Chi Minh Trail over 13 feet of rain. That was 40 years ago.
Yeah, a guy by the name of Ben Livingston did it. He was the first man to seed a cloud and control it, use weather as a weapon. And since then, they've been, I mean, they practiced with it in the 50s, the British, but this was the first time it was actually used in warfare. And that was, 40-something years ago, Mike? So what do you think how far do you think they've advanced in 40 years?
Jeez.
According to former weatherman, meteorologist Scott Stevens, I asked him, I said, how much of our weather is natural? He said, none of it. He said, it's all being engineered. He stated now, they used to work in smaller regions. He said now they're working on about continent-sized projects. So it's very beneficial for the military. There was a document that we covered in What in the World Are They Spraying called Owning the Weather by 2025. That's an expressed interest of our military. But Agenda 21, let's talk a little bit about Agenda 21.
Oh, my, yeah.
Yeah, the wonderful agenda that Bill Clinton, our good friend, always promotes. And,
our buddy Slick Willie, yeah, that's right.
Slick Willie. But if you remember the floods that occurred a little over a year ago in the Midwest, it was after planting season, and it devastated farmers. And because they had already planted their crops, a number of farmers were actually put out of business. But the ones that were able to rebound were forced to go to a Monsanto and DuPont seed that could grow late in the season. But the interest in terms of Agenda 21 was the fact that a number of farmers went out of business and lost everything through this flood.
And who bought all that farmland, interestingly enough, Mike? Mm-hmm. George Soros.
Popeye's got it right.
Woo!
George Soros. And it's very effective. It's essentially theft. It's legalized theft. And it was for
But no one knows. No, I mean, who knows? That's the thing. People attribute it to a natural event, and little do they know that they're being duped. And that's what's so crazy. Huge being duped. Folks, we're going to talk more about this in Agenda 21 and much more with Michael Murphy when we get back from break. So don't go away. So much more to talk about. Folks, don't forget, following the Freedom Link on Sunday evening is the Information Nation with Ken Hildebrand. That's right, from 9 to 11 Eastern Daylight Time. You can listen to that crotchety old curmudgeon spew the latest news and headlines in a way that will captivate you. That's right. That's the Information Nation with Ken from 9 to 11 on the Orion Talk Radio Network. I got Michael Murphy from What in the World Are They Spraying here. And, I mean, this has been a Popeye, I mean, this is awesome, dude. It's not often I get a chance to talk about this kind of stuff during the week because we're always kind of saddled with the 96 crises of the day. So, I mean, it's good to be able to focus on these, I hate to call it conspiracy, but it is, man. It's a conspiracy.
Well, look, people need to stop using the word conspiracy the way they do.
But it is, though. It's a crime. It's a conspiracy.
No, I know. That's what they need to... They need to look at it in legal terms. They need to stop looking at it because people they give conspiracy. It's like they're not using it in the right structure and the right form. They say, "Oh, everything with you is a conspiracy," and what they mean a lot of times is, not so much that it's a group of people doing something, but it's something bad. So the term conspiracy now means something bad or whatever. People use it as a descriptive term, but not in the correct way. Right. A conspiracy in the legal term is two or more people getting together to do something bad. That's the basic definition of it. Okay, people get charged with conspiracy to do whatever all the time. So if you have a flight crew, which is more than two people, flying a plane with crap in it and they're spraying it out into the atmosphere, by definition, that's a conspiracy to poison the atmosphere and the planet. It's as simple as that.
No, that's true. Michael, your thoughts on that?
Well, the term conspiracy has been effectively demonized by our corporate mainstream media and to protect the crimes that these people are committing. So, definitely part of an agenda to get people to not question what's going on. So fortunately, people are waking up. They're realizing that there are many corrupt things going on in the world. So the tides are turning. I'm glad that you guys are a part of it. I'm glad to be a part of it as well. But the chemtrail issue is so insidious. And again, these metals are not only showing up and devastating our soils and actually sterilizing our soils. A number of people since the first film have been getting their blood tested. And again, they're finding this chemtrail geoengineering footprint of aluminum, barium, and strontium. Aluminum is very toxic, related to a number of neurological illnesses, including Alzheimer's. Barium lowers our immune system, increases our blood pressure, and strontium is a carcinogen. These metals, again, are showing up. A group in Mojave County, Arizona, 26 people got their blood tested. Out of that, 22 tested for what is considered to be 1,000 times over the elevated level of barium. Many of those people are suffering a lot of health implications. Respiratory mortality went from number 8 down to number 3. These are ultrafine particles, nanoparticles. Typically, our bodies have natural defenses in our lungs and in our brain. Aluminum should not get into our brain because we have a blood-brain barrier, but because these are so small, they pass right through. As a result, now we have documented cases of people in their 40s with Alzheimer's. So again, there's been no greater threat to life on the planet. But what really interested me in the investigation and why in the world are they spraying? By the way, you can see the trailer, and we actually have pre-sales available. This will help us complete the film. You can find more information at whyangels.info. That's whyangels.info. But what we found was the corporate and even beyond corporate agenda, because we know conclusively through our studies, through the scientific papers, our soils are being sterilized. And I just got back from Maui, Hawaii. I was there for 2.5 months, and we did a lot of interviews. I spoke with a lot of organic farmers and actually interviewed 2 organic farmers. The farmers there have seen between a 60 and 70% decline in their ability to grow natural organic seeds. That is believed to be a direct result of chemtrail geoengineering programs. The director of health on Maui became concerned about this, tested over 30 rain tests, and again, this footprint of aluminum, barium, and strontium showed up, which again will devastate our soils. What we found in our investigation in the first film, we covered an aluminum-resistant seed. We know aluminum oxide is in our rain. That's aluminum in its free form. Because it's in its free form, it should not be in our soils. Aluminum is very abundant in our soils, but not in free form, and that's why geoengineering programs are devastating our soils. But what we found, again, natural organic foods are dying. The ecosystem collapse. Our forests are dying. There is a solution to this. It's a stress-resistant seed that Monsanto patented, and it will grow in soils that have abiotic stress. Abiotic stress is heavy metal contamination. It's also drought conditions.
Gee, coincidence, huh?
Very much of a coincidence.
Yeah.
But what we found was the entire agenda to completely corporatize our food. And when I was in Maui, I got my first glimpse at what it was like to live off of the land. You know, we're eating from trees and really self-sufficient. And I think that's the way that God had designed this, so that we're all dependent on nature, sunshine,
right,
rain, and natural seeds. Now, through droughts, through the stress, farmers are now having to go with the stress-resistant seeds. So this is, in part, an agenda to literally corporatize every natural system and make us dependent on the corporation. And I guess the best example I could give is Africa. Africa right now is a target of Monsanto, and Monsanto has an agenda. They say, we want to own everything that grows. Well, how do you convince a country or farmers in a country like Africa to start purchasing these genetically modified seeds, which are terminator seeds, where they have to go season after season and purchase? Normal seeds typically reproduce, so a farmer can be self-sufficient. Well, what they do through the geoengineering, and geoengineers even talk about droughts in Africa and Asia being a result of geoengineering programs. Everything that they state will happen if they start has started happening and is happening. So if you go to a country, you say, listen, we want you to sign on to our world government, and we obviously want your Monsanto seeds. Well, if you're this country, you say, you know what, we're comfortable, we want to be sovereign, we want to grow naturally organic. These companies are saying, okay, we'll talk to you in a year. And they send a drought. And the farmers are down on their knees, and they are begging for the genetically modified seeds, and they will gladly give up their sovereignty to sign onto this world government. Geoengineer David Keith said, geoengineering gives man godlike power. This is what it is. And again, back to Hawaii, I realized what it was like to live in the balance of nature. You know, our ancestors used to worship God. They used to pray to the Great Spirit, do rain dances for rain. But now that it's being corporatized, people are going to have to go to these corporations and be worshipped. So what this is, it is literally an agenda to take natural systems under the authority of nature through the weather control, the destruction of natural systems. They actually usurp the authority of God and or the authority of nature and bring it under corporate authority so that man can have power and be worshipped. It's literally the most effective tool for consolidating an enormous amount of monetary and political power. And when they control every natural system, and that is what the goal is, and these programs, if we allow them to continue, will allow them to achieve their agenda, they literally will be able to control everything. We're talking about population. We're talking about age. Everything. They will have godlike power. So we're in a very, very vital time to address this. And those of us who have children, or loved ones, there has been, again, no greater threat on the planet than these programs. We have a very unique opportunity to stand up and to create the future that we want. And I will not be able to look a child in the eye if I take a day off addressing this. And I know that Popeye works 7 days a week, and God, thank you so much for addressing this. But this is how serious it is. We are the generation that has been called to stand in the gap and to restore our Earth. Let's.
Well, I'll tell you what, folks, time certainly goes by extremely fast when you have a guest like Michael Murphy on the broadcast. And I'm so glad that, Michael, that you were able to come out tonight and talk about why in the world are they spraying. Now, as far as the timeline's concerned, when's the DVD going to come out? When's the new movie going to come out?
Oh, yeah, we forgot to address that. Our premiere is on August 18th at the Ebell Theater. It's actually at the Chemtrails Beyond Consciousness conference here in Los Angeles. So we'll be premiering. We do, for those who cannot make it, we do have DVDs pre-orders that will help us complete the production. We're running a very, very tight budget, about 20% of the budget that we had for What in the World Are They Spraying. So check out the trailer at whyangels.info. That's whyangels.info. And or go to truthmediaproductions.us. This is something that we want everyone to become aware of. Please send the trailer out, which is available on YouTube. Why in the World Are They Spraying official trailer. But, I'm very excited because we have about 14 minutes of the film done. And initially I was thinking that this would be a secondary film, that we would still lead in with What in the World Are They Spraying. But the content and the quality of this film definitely surpasses the first film. So I will be leading with this. And we, based on what we have and what we put together so far, again, the first film has woken up and been seen by over 10 million people. And I really believe that this film will impact even more people. And it's so essential because, again, we are in a very vital time in history with this issue. Geoengineers now are calling for emergency legislation. I think that's because we're working on ordinances around the globe to ban these programs. So we have an opportunity to wake up, but we need a conscious and aware public. And the only way to do that, because the lamestream media is not going to address this, we have to get out there. We have to pass out DVDs, send out links, and really bring this issue into light. Again, this is the biggest crime against nature and humanity. These are corporations that profit literally from death. And if we allow these programs to continue, we will give our future over to this corporate interest or the beast, whatever you want to call it. I have a lot of different words for it. So, again, we have a very important responsibility for humanity, those of us who are aware of it.
No, you're not kidding. Popeye, you got anything else you want to say to Michael before we go?
Actually, I wanted to ask him, are you guys doing the same thing that you guys did the last time with the first film, where if people pre-order, there's special incentives? I think, like, you put their name in the credits. No, their name actually became part of the, like, in the credits as part of the, the reason that the film was created, which that...
Oh, is that... Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I think that really gives people a
personal feel to it, at least.
Yeah, like, I was I was able to help these guys bring that out. And I think that's actually a good angle to go. So I was just wondering if you guys were doing the same thing with the second film.
We're doing the same thing, and what we did, we offered angels, people that donated $200 and above to the program. We will put their names in the credit, and again, we're working on a shoestring budget, and because the film will be posted and available for free, it's even more essential that we get donations, because you never recoup your production expenses when you put a film out for free. But again,
right.
We have to do it. All of my stuff is available for free, and that will never change because I believe in the issue so much. But if $200, I know times are tough, is a lot of money, pre-orders will help us as well. Even $1 if you have it, any help. But bottom line is this: we all need to pull together. I don't have much money. I live in a low-income area. I've given up my profession to address this issue, but I do have time. I do have the ability through my contacts to put together a very effective and impactful film because I'm right here very close to Hollywood. So what I'm trying to say is we all need to pull in our resources, support each other, and get this out. But again, if you're totally strapped for cash, please send out links to What in the World Are They Spraying in the new trailer, Why in the World Are They Spraying official trailer, and get the word out. Use Facebook, whatever method you can, because, again, the time that we have is such a great responsibility, and we have the tools to address this and to get it stopped. So very important.
Yeah, it most certainly is, especially now with all the health ailments that are going on and people suffering. I mean, not only from, from an economic standpoint, the jobs suck, everything sucks now. And the one thing that you should have control over is the air you breathe. I mean,
or the food you eat, too.
Or the food you eat. The things that you put into your body, you should have control over what you do.
Well,
and the fact that
think about this, Joe.
Go ahead.
That's an important thing. I want to stop you there for a second because it's really important for the listeners to realize. Think about it this way. If you have like aluminum cookware, like old aluminum trays or baking trays, whatever, you can get rid of that. If you have aluminum pots, you can get rid of that. You can minimize your use of aluminum foil, whatever, and the exposure that you expose yourself and your food to the aluminum. But you have no control over it when it's being dumped into the atmosphere at 35 or 40,000 feet. Okay? You don't have any control over it at that point. And now you are still being poisoned. So all that effort that you go out of your way to keep yourself away from aluminum and stop it from having it seep into your food or
they've taken that choice away from you.
Well, yeah, all that stuff that you've done is now a moot point because now they're just pissing on your front lawn with it, basically.
Right.
And and if you and Andrew go, we're going to grow a garden. We don't screw food stores, and you take an entire acre of your property, right? And you just make a huge garden out of it to feed you and your kids and your wife. Right, and you're successful in doing so. That food's really not organic and clean and healthy. It should be. 200 years ago, it would have been clean and healthy. Not now. Even if you don't spray a pesticide on it, you're still being sprayed like roaches, and all that crap filters down. I leave stuff outside, right, as a test. I have a big steel table I have outside. I'm a glass blower. It's one of the things I know how to do. It's a trade I have. I know how to blow glass. Okay, it's my glass blowing table. It's a solid steel table. I have it outside on my patio right now. I have to wipe that thing down, dude. If not, I won't. I don't like my wife going near it if it's not wiped down because you can literally after a week outside, just without touching it, you'll see this film of crap. And if I take a wet paper towel and wipe it across and it comes up, you can see some of it's metal particulate matter. What the hell is that? How is that getting onto the table? That's not natural. Then you realize, well, of course, if you know anything about chemtrails, that's where it's coming from. That's the stuff that, like Michael was talking about, the aluminum plus all the other crap, the barium and what is it? Strontium's the other one, right?
Strontium, yeah, that's the big three.
And those are the big three, but there's a lot of other chemicals and toxins they're putting up. Manganese is another chemical that's been coming up. That causes impotence. So if anybody wants to keep their what word should I use here? Their game going, this is an issue. Just on that issue alone is something we should address.
Absolutely. I mean, and also, Michael, the work of the Carnicom Institute, Cliff Carnicom, and finding dried blood cells and how about smart dust and Morgellons, all of these different things that have come as a result of this geoengineering and all these experimentations that are run on people. Arsenic. I mean,
just Google Evergreen.
Arsenic?
Everybody wonders how they spray it. They go, well, who would be the people to spray it? Google Evergreen, and you will find out that this company Evergreen, who quote-unquote makes firefighting airplanes, okay, this same company, Evergreen, was formerly known by another name, who anybody who's a Vietnam vet would surely recognize it. It was known as Air America.
Air America.
CIA Front Corporation. Need I say any more?
No.
It sure was. And it even boasts about their ability to to spray storms, and that Evergreen was actually down spraying the core exits. So they had a fleet of airplanes that were ready to go, and they absolutely have this technology.
They're really good at screwing stuff up, that's for sure. Well, we're about out of time, Michael. Can you plug your website one more time for us?
Sure. You can go to truthmediaproductions.us. Please support us in purchasing the first film. For the new film, information can be found at whyangels.info. That's WHYangels.info. Please send the word out. We really feel strongly that the awakening is occurring, but still largely most people are unaware. So it's up to us, those of us who are aware, who know, to educate our friends, family, whoever we can about this.
Fantastic. And it was great to have you here, Michael, for sure. Folks, hour number 1 is just about done here. Hour number 2, we're going to be going over some of the headlines that are going on. Of course, the big one tonight for us is Mitt Romney is honored to have the endorsement of Rand Paul. So Popeye and I are going to dive into that one in hour number 2. Yeah.
Just more reasons why, just more proof that voting is crap.
No, you ain't kidding. Of course, Halprin comes out today and says, Dems now believe Obama could lose. We'll talk about that because, guess what? Romney and Mitch Daniels were honored guests at this last Bilderberg meeting, so we'll get into that too. And so much more. So don't go away. Again, folks, support Michael Murphy's effort with What in the World Are They Spraying and Why in the World Are They Spraying? Spread it like wildfire. We'll be back after the news. Don't go away.